I want you to get your mind spinning a bit, to get you thinking a little bit, is that when you first got saved, if you're saved, okay, when you first came to Christ, what sparked that? What brought that to fruition? What was it that sparked a thought in your mind that you were going to respond to the fact that Jesus Christ was real, that this is the real deal, that not all pastors are crazy, just Brian, and that it's my first shot. There's going to be lots more. And you guys are a tough crowd, eh? Like, I'm an amazing comedian, and you guys never laugh. The only time you ever laugh is at my expense. Why is this? Anyway. Like, have you ever spent time thinking about why you made that decision? As a matter of fact, sometimes you might be spinning in your mind about, why did I make that decision? Like, this was crazy. I need to just walk away from all of this. Or sometimes you're like on the verge of making that decision and you're just really not sure. You're trying to figure out Jesus a little bit and you're trying to just wrap your mind around this whole God thing. And maybe it's religion, right? We started off at the beginning of this series talking about how we have to reshape. I told you guys to totally forget everything that you've ever been taught if you grew up in the church, because that's the only way you're going to get past the hurdle of the presuppositions that you've learned most of your life. We all have presuppositions, but church kids specifically have them, and they don't even know why. They've articulated things in their mind of, well, this is what I believe, but when you actually challenge that, when push comes to shove, they have no idea. Which is why I want to go into my next series, because I think it's important that we're able to work through that. But when I started to develop through this process, and you guys know that I have a whole message that I've preached of why I didn't need to get saved. Obviously, theologically, that's wrong. We all need to get saved from sin. But my life was fine, right? Christianity actually ruined my life, okay? It has, in the worldly sense. It's totally ruined my life. I make a lot less money than I would have if I played in the NHL or if I would have used my engineering degree to build roads and bridges and things like that. But at the same time, God saved me. So I think about this all the time. I think about the journey that I've been on to coming up to this point in my life. I think about the people I've met throughout that. I think about the lives that I've seen changed. I think about the people that are going through a lot of crappy stuff. And I think about people that have come from going through the crappy stuff and have conquered it and are moving forward in their faith. And I think of people that have come to faith. And all of this spins through my mind of everything I've seen in the 13 years that I've been saved and in the 9 years that I've been in pastoral ministry. See, that's weird, right? Because 13 years I've been saved, 9 years I've been a pastor. That's strange, right? But it's just the journey that God's taken me on. It's different. It's unique. Everybody's journey is unique. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different approach to their Christianity. Everybody has a different answer to why they're Christian. I believe, though, that there's stages that we go through in our faith. And so I said there was 3 stages last week that I dealt with. And obviously, the first stage is that seeking stage where you finally come to the point where you're seeking it and then you accept it. That's stage 1. We call it getting saved. Okay? So you've come to the point where you've been working through who Jesus is, who God is, how all of that, Jesus being God and how all of that fits together. And you don't have that figured out yet, because neither do I. And you have come to the point where you're now ready to believe in your heart and profess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, meaning that Jesus is going to control your life. This is initial salvation. This is when you come to the point where I believe. Stage 1, you get saved. I mean, in my notes, I have it's called life-changing awareness of God, where when you first get saved, you have that 180 that happens in your life, where you wake up to the fact that we're sinners, where you repent of those sins, where you do a 180, where you completely turn and you change. But that process of change is a journey. It's part of what we go through, what we progress through. There's more chairs around here, guys. What we progress through in our life and in our faith specifically. So stage 1 is simply this: get saved. Okay? Now, it's a life-changing awareness of God. So you first of all have to understand that it's life-changing. Okay? So if we're going to articulate the fact that we're getting saved, have a seat, guys. You can have a conversation later. all right? High five, hug, move on. And so when I say life-changing, I mean that it's lifelong. And that change that happens in your life, although we tend to articulate it as instant, it is still part of a journey. In theology, we call that journey sanctification, right? So justification, where we've been now saved, we're justified in the eyes of God, where our sin is been dealt with by Jesus, that's justified. Then we begin the process of sanctification. The process of sanctification is becoming more and more and more like Jesus progressively as we live our life out. So, this is what you need to grasp in stage 1. Yes, you've made a decision for Jesus, but no, you're not Jesus yet. Okay? And your pastors aren't Jesus, except maybe Brian. And I'm sorry, this is only this week ever. I'm lying. and So stage 1, your life-changing journey is begun. So you do have a change. Like with me, it was a change. My way of thinking changed, but not necessarily my way of living right away. But the difference was now I had convictions in my way of living that didn't exist before. So I had to sift through all of this. Like, what the heck is going on here? Okay, now with me, it was caused by relationships I had with other people and by reading the Bible from start to finish. So I came to that point of believing it was real. I hit stage 1. I begin the journey through all of this, and then we come to stage 2, which is very simple. Discipleship. Discipleship. We become disciples. Now, stage 2 is a never-ending stage. Okay, so we can't... Do I have to separate you guys like we're in high school or something?
Actually, with him, you would have to.
Yeah. Stage 2 is the discipleship stage where you never leave this stage. You are always constantly being discipled. You're constantly being a learner. That's what a disciple is, where you're learning about Jesus. You see, at the beginning, you profess Jesus Christ as Lord. You believe in your heart. You profess with your mouth. Now you're saved. You're justified. So now, in the sanctification process, you need to learn what Jesus was like, what the attributes of God are, what God is like, what his nature is, and then you have to look at that model and not just become just like Jesus. I don't really like that theory because I like normal clothes. I don't really want to wear sandals and a tunic and stuff like that, and I don't want to be a rabbi that teaches in synagogues. That was Jesus. But what I'm talking about is the nature, the personhood of who the part of the Godhead Jesus Christ was, in the way that he treated people, the way that he just looked at life. And we can be that person by gradually changing, a continual changing in life constantly, that's lifelong, in called our discipleship, where we are learning to be like Jesus. Not literally, but in a sense, literally. You need to learn what God was like. What is it that Jesus is teaching? Why did he teach the specific things that he taught? Why morally? Like, morals are only part of this. You realize that, right? You see, you can act very moral. I know lots of people that are good people, but aren't Christians. I know lots of people that care for the poor and care for the widows and the oppressed, all the things that Christians are supposed to do, but they're not Christians. So it's more than just morality, it's a complete lifestyle. Everything about who you are at the core, deep down in you, is what needs to change, what needs to start shifting, what needs to be different than everybody else. And that's done through the discipleship process of learning what Jesus taught, why we need to be a certain way, why do we care for the orphans and the widows and the poor, why do we do the things we do, why does a crazy bald guy stand up and yell at you every week? Why? Like, seriously, why? Think about that. Why do you come to be yelled at every week? These are things that you need to work through in your discipleship process. You have to work through this, not to analyze, to make it worse of walking out of here going, I got to do better. That's not what it's about, because it's a process. So stage 2 never officially ends until the day you die. That is when stage 2 ends, is when you meet Jesus. So you will always be in the discipleship process, the process of sanctification, where you are learning. That's what a disciple is, a learner. In the times of Christ, it was becoming just like your rabbi.